Welcome back. Today, we're diving into something that's at the heart of any real climate strategy: data gathering. I know it can sound a little intimidating, but we're going to break it all down and make it super clear. Let's get right into it. So, it really all starts with this one big question, right? How in the world do you measure a footprint that you can't even see? It feels invisible. But here's the thing: it's not magic, it's more like detective work. You just have to know what clues to look for. And every good detective needs a rule book. For us, that's the GHG Protocol. This is the gold standard, the guide that's recognized all over the world. Think of it as our official framework that tells us exactly how to run this investigation into a company's emissions. What's really cool about the protocol is that it breaks this huge, complex task into three simple categories. They call them scopes. You can think of them as three totally distinct areas of our investigation. We're going to walk through each one step by step and see what data we need to collect. First up, we've got Scope 1. I love calling this one the inside job, and for good reason. It's all about the emissions happening right inside the company, from sources that they own or directly control. So, what does that really mean in plain English? Well, we're talking about stuff like the fuel you burn in your own company boilers or the gas that goes into your company's fleet of cars and trucks. Basically, if you own it and it's putting out emissions, that's Scope 1. Simple as that. Okay, so here's our detective's handbook for Scope 1. The name of the game is finding what's called activity data. That's the raw numbers. For something like a furnace, you're going to look at utility bills to see how much gas was used. For company cars, you'll be checking fuel receipts for liters or gallons. And yeah, even those pesky fugitive emissions from a leaky air conditioner can be tracked. You just look at the maintenance logs for refrigerant purchases. And this is a super important point. So listen up. You have to focus on the quantity of the fuel, not how much money you spent on it. Why? Because $100 worth of gas changes all the time with prices, but the emissions from one single gallon, that's a constant. It's the physical amount that's going to give you a truly accurate footprint. All right, so we've handled the inside job. Now, our investigation is going to move outwards a bit. We're going to start following the energy trail. And that brings us straight to Scope 2. This is all about the energy your company buys from the outside world. Scope 2 covers all those emissions that didn't happen right at your building, but they were created for you. Think about it. You flip a light switch in your office, and somewhere else, a power plant has to burn fuel to make that electricity for you. Those are your Scope 2 emissions. Now, when it comes to tracking this, there are two different ways to do it. The location-based method is pretty straightforward. It just looks at the total kilowatt hours you used and applies the average emissions for your local power grid. But the market-based method, that tells a much more interesting story. It reflects the specific choices your company made, like if you decided to buy renewable energy. For that, you'll need the records to prove it. All right, deep breath, because our investigation is about to get a whole lot bigger. We're moving on to Scope 3, which covers the entire extended network, the whole value chain. This is where things get complex, but honestly, it's probably the most important part of the whole puzzle. Scope 3 is pretty much everything else. I mean, everything. It's the emissions from your suppliers who make your raw materials, it's your employees driving to work, it's all that business travel, the waste you produce. It all gets bundled under this one massive umbrella. And this right here is exactly why Scope 3 is so critical. For most companies, it is the lion's share of their entire carbon footprint. We're talking 75%, maybe even more. So if you ignore Scope 3, you're literally missing most of the story. And the handbook for Scope 3 really shows you how spread out all these clues are. Your business travel data, it's buried in expense reports. Need to figure out employee commuting? You'll probably need to send out some anonymous surveys. For all the goods you buy, you'll be digging through records in the finance department. See? The data is truly everywhere. So we know what we're looking for, we know where to find it, but, just like in any good detective story, there are always going to be some hurdles. So let's talk about how to crack the case when you hit those inevitable roadblocks. And you're pretty much guaranteed to run into these three usual suspects. First, data silos. The information you need is locked away in different departments that don't talk to each other. Second, you're going to find gaps, missing data. It happens. And third, you might get a lack of buy-in from colleagues who just don't get why this is so important. But here's the good news. These are all solvable problems if you have a plan. To break down those silos, you build a team with people from finance, HR, facilities, you get everyone involved. To deal with missing data, you use a calendar and make smart, documented estimations. And to get that buy-in, you've got to communicate the why. Explain how this data helps manage risk, find ways to save money, and seriously boost the company's reputation. And this, right here, might be the most important piece of advice I can give you. Don't let the idea of perfection stop you from getting started. Just begin. Start with the data you can get your hands on easily. This whole thing is a process. Your data, your methods, they'll get better and more accurate every single year you do it. So that leaves us with one final question, and this one's for you. After everything we've just talked about, what's the very first data clue you could go find in your organization, like right now? Is it a utility bill on your desk? A fuel receipt in your email? A travel report? Your investigation starts now.